Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's nearly 3 p.m. on June 10th, Friday, 2022, my time, and it's hot in my neck of the woods in between getting some exercise done and some things that are, if I could tell you, would blow your freaking mind that are sizing up right now. But, I had to chime in here on the Friday afternoon and just draw attention to what's happening in these congressional hearings on the insurrection and so forth and what was revealed last night. And, it got me to thinking if I was going to write a trailer, for example, for a blockbuster film, imagine a summer blockbuster film starring for somebody, I don't know, let's say Tom Cruise. And he's on this adventure. It turns out he's this, pro se sort of independent journalist, like a citizen journalist, a guy who may have gotten swept up in a situation to where he decided he was going to get the answers, but he kept pulling on the threads and he found these just unbelievably giant answers. And what he found that the financial system had actually pulled this coup d'etat, this incredible, diabolical espionage in which they set tens of millions of people up in a scheme so massive that it would go up to blow up the global economy that would ultimately then be tied to another sort of like, let's say, a Pearl Harbor moment where this financial system and the fossil fuel apparatus decided to get together to hijack the government of the United States. And in so doing, they were able to buy Congress. They were able to buy the presidency. They were able to buy the judiciary. And then ultimately, they were able to influence media because media was so concerned with its access to power, but ultimately its financialization to where this truth that literally destroyed tens of millions of people would not be told. But see, our protagonist, our hero, our Tom Cruise character goes to hell and high water to be able to pull all of the ingredients, to be able to tell the truth. And what happens in the midst of it all is right as he's about to launch with the truth, this white supremacist revolution takes place where it basically attacks the People's House and Congress and takes it over in this massive infiltration. But then ultimately, we find out that the whole thing was set up to be a distraction to the power that's already hijacked everything else. And so they had to create these culture wars. And then ultimately, the ultimate revelation is when, tens of millions of people that were destroyed by trillions of dollars of fraud that took over the entire government, that everything that is set up in this country to protect we the people as an extension of the we the people didn't actually function because it was hijacked due to corruption, and then ultimately led to this revolution. And this protagonist, this character, gets to the end with all the truth and everything that actually reveals it all, but no one believed him. And nobody would actually take the time to look because they were too busy fighting each other because they had been programmed to believe that it was the other guy that was responsible for their misery. Look, that's my freaking reality. And that's what we're in the midst of. The markets are in turmoil. I mean, we didn't even see it buy the dip today. I mean, I think we're down nearly 1,000 points. I mean, this is in 2 days of the Dow. And when that type of stuff happens, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. A lot of macroeconomists like to say that, the stock market isn't the real economy. But the performance of the stock market is actually more important to the central bank, the Federal Reserve of the most powerful nation on the world who has global currency, fiat currency predicated on everybody investing in that market that creates these sorts of schemes that financial system that I told you about can basically manipulate to their purpose all day long. And in the Tom Cruise fictional depiction of what I just said, would you believe it? Would it be too far-fetched? Would you pay money to see that blockbuster? And to pretend, wow, I wonder if that could happen. It's happening right before your freaking eyes. I said it yesterday. I wanted to kind of create, and I've got to go on tangent. I mean, we're on TikTok here. We're getting a vast majority of our interest from TikTok, which means that out of the 5 million plus views that we've had, over 20,000 likes and 100,000 likes, I should say, and subscriptions at like 20,000, huge numbers, right? A vast majority of the people that are on TikTok, to my knowledge, are young people. So if you're just coming up in this world, let's say you're 18 to 25, you're just getting primed to vote. We're going to come up on these midterms where it's all going to be about, abortion and gun rights and then ultimately the insurrection. And honestly, those are all three incredibly important measures. But it's also an extension of the culture wars that have been going on for decades. The real power of this country is exactly what I described in the outset. The fictional depiction of Tom Cruise would be me, yours truly, Patrick Lovell, the guy, the adventure, this like insane, whodunit that has never ended. I became that citizen journalist because I'm a producer. I have a background in political science. I've been around power forever, and I became a journalist. And becoming a journalist isn't just repeating what everybody else says. You got to go deep. You got to get the evidence. You got to go to the whistleblowers. You got to learn policy. You got to understand geopolitics. You got to be able to understand everything that took place to make this thing happen. And I will tell you this. In the aftermath, again, I mentioned this yesterday, but I'm going to mention it again. In the aftermath of 9/11, we had the 9/11 Commission hearings. It didn't accomplish anything because it didn't prove what the information that Saudi Arabia or the parts of the Saudi royal family were involved with being able to facilitate material assistance to the hijackers in the cells that both President Cheney, ironically enough, given his daughter was really, I thought, profound last night, Liz Cheney, in the Senate hearings and in the congressional hearings, and President Bush knew about it. So the 9/11 Commission, I think they spent $4 million on something that ended up lasting 20 years, that cost trillions of dollars to the military-industrial complex and everything else in the wake of 9/11, and thousands of people died on 9/11, and the millions of others that died in the in-between, and the war in Yemen and Saudi Arabia and all of those insane situations. And then the other side of the coin, of course, is the 2008 financial crisis that we had a bipartisan investigation starting with 11 hearings, congressional hearings, and then we had what was known as and I didn't mention this yesterday because I forgot the name, but the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission, where we literally got most of what I reveal in the con, except for more ingredients and thumbprints of evidence that shows exactly what I said in the outset. And now here we are with the insurrection. Look, to me, what didn't take place to hold Wall Street accountable that led to all this madness made Trump and the insurrection inevitable. Like Forrest Gump said, I think he said it best when he said, stupid is as stupid does. How on earth, if we're 18 to 25 years old and you're about to walk into this world that is a disarray, that's completely gutted to its, it's just overwrought with corruption, that is driving us into the ground, the sustainability on the planet because of dependence on fossil fuels, on dependence on global corruption, on this these nodes of these hierarchies of these oligarchs around the world that basically flush all their money through our system and back again, and it's profitable at your expense. And many of those people wound up as MAGAs inside Congress. And I was watching that testimony last night, and I tell you, it was freaking on, man. Those people who invaded the Capitol were insane, and if a lot of them were going to jail, but a lot of them that are part of the Proud Boys, a lot of them that are part of the Oath Keepers and all those guys, they were the foot soldiers, man. And if they're the only ones who go down for this whole thing, we do not follow the money. We do not follow the money of the Koch brothers and all of their institutions that funneled a lot of the stuff, or the mastermind of somebody like Steve Bannon or somebody like the Merzers who were involved with Cambridge Analytica, and the list goes on. But it's like, for organizations to work, you gotta have money, psyops, structural integrity, all of those things, which of course come from these players that provide this money. And why would they do that? Why would they want this country in disarray and at each other's throats? Well, if government is being used to thwart everything in every direction, now the people are kind of, missing the point. Do you think that they can actually do whatever they want with impunity? You bet your ass. And by the way, that goes for pretty much all the major players on Wall Street, not to mention all of the cons and the grifts that have taken place pretty much since 2019. I mean, everything is just absolutely insane. And if you're 18 to 25 years old and you're just walking into this world, when you look at this global calamity with markets collapsing right now, usually this stuff happens the fall. Unless there's a big rebound, which there might be, but I don't think so, because I think we're at the end of the rope. I think investors are going to drop the ball on this whole thing. They're going to watch this thing kind of reconnect. They always call it a correction. But the correction is, what's the Federal Reserve going to do? Is the Federal Reserve going to carry through with quantitative tightening? Are they going to stop buying bond purchases with real estate, which means that they actually provided 0% interest to the hierarchy of these freaking monstrous asset managers and financial institutions in the form of hedge funds and all of the rest of these guys that pull off this bullshit based on what we show on the con at www.thecon.tv, and then ultimately it comes out through this fraud pipeline that the government or the independent Federal Reserve buys back and sells the bonds around the world, and they money launder this whole thing. It's fucking nuts. Alex Jones, sometimes I get worried and I'm like, God damn, do I sound like one of these hyperbolic morons like Alex Jones and some of these other guys? I'm a fucking journalist and I've got the answers, and truth is stranger than fiction. And if I put it, in a screenplay where, Tom Cruise was leading this thing and it had incredible trailers and, massive distribution and everything else, you'd probably go see it and people would like get their, $25 worth with popcorn and all that kind of stuff and go, yeah, that was a great movie. Jesus Christ, could you imagine that happening? It's been happening for 20 freaking years. And it's not fiction, it's reality. Look, guys. Whatever happens next is whatever happens next. But the information, the facts, the evidence, the answers, the good guys, those who could actually turn this system around, the choice between the new robber barons and the new Confederacy is a non-choice. Liberty and justice for all. We've got to create a populist movement based on truth. Truth has got to have more value than lies. Truth has got to be more powerful than deception. That's the light and the dark side of the force. Whose side are you on? I remember growing up and going to all of these movies like, Indiana Jones or Star Wars and everything else. Could you imagine 3/4 of the audience rooting for the Nazis or Darth Vader? That's the only way I can describe the fact that we're all sitting on our ass while the system runs amok. It's easy for people to get swept up in this whole business, and you watch. Things are going to trigger when the top 10%, who tend to be, the most educated in this country, the most spot on in terms of how they operate with their finances and their savings, and they move the economy and college education and all of those things with their family. You would just wait. If they start to lose their shit in this global mammoth run, that's basically after a 13-year bull run based on the fraud that I've laid out to you before, you just watch. There's going to be a lot of people going, no, what the heck is going on here? Why do you want to leave it to people that are the top 10% of this country who have been basically feeding off of this corruption even though they don't know it? And I can't blame them for it, because I know if you've got your house and you save for it and it goes up significantly, in appraisal value, what's the problem? If your stocks go up and significantly in appraisal value, what's the problem? I'll tell you what the problem is. What if you find yourself accidentally in the midst of some sort of fucking concoction like 9/11? Or the war in Yemen, or the war in Saudi Arabia, or Iraq, or all over the fucking world, or famine in all over the fucking world, or food resources, or the war in Ukraine and all that. Look, this shit's unnecessary. It's just oligarchs that have absolute control. If the United States functioned of, by, and for the people with the integrity of law that purged corruption by putting the bad guys in jail where they belong and clawing back their stocks, would send a message, just like this insurrection hearing is trying to send a message to the country that Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, was ridiculous. And what he was doing was ignoring even the closest advisors. If you buy all of it, I don't know if Bill Barr, former Attorney General of Trump, has thrown him under the bus, or if he's like, just to hear him say that, the lie, the big lie was all bullshit. Just with that kind of candor from an Attorney General is remarkable. Because it was bullshit, and they're going to lay it out the whole time. But if they don't lay out the Mercers, the Kochs, the Blackwater and Eric Prince and the oligarchs and all of those things and Steve Bannon, then they're not getting the full story. Maybe it's just safe to go after some people and not safe to go after others. That's what I've been involved with the whole time, and that's what our character, our protagonist Tom Cruise, would be revealing in a fictional depiction if we scripted that. But instead, I'm here telling it to you straight to your face. Please join us. Please join the Justice Party. Please leave comments if you give it a big thumbs up and you want to be a part of this whole crusade, because failure is not an option. This is the righteous grind. This is truth is marching, because it's all predicated on the kind, and we can solve this thing through the Justice Party. Those are all hashtags. Onwards and upwards, my friends.